Okay, guys, today we have planning phase, and inside the planning, we are going to check with the scope completely. So, scope is one of the major part for the planning. This is the very crucial and very major part for the planning. So we can start. We will understand like how it will be the planning happening and how till closure it will be happen for the planning closure. We will see in this meeting. So the first question is coming like a scope management. So what are the things is available inside the scope management? Any idea about that? And why the scope management is mostly required? Whatever.
Fine, sir.
Yes, anyone. Why the scope is required and what is the main crucial part for the scope? Why we more focus on the scope?
So when it comes to a project, I think it's important to understand the scope for ensuring that the delivery that we do is to the requirement, nothing less, nothing low. And it includes potentially even the cost associated with it, right? Within what cost it should be done, what schedules it has to be done, right? So that is why it's important that we manage the scope and what is the actual activity which is required to be done, which uh, in Scrum terminology, there is something called as which helps us understand the definition of done, right? So we have to define the definition of done before we can go ahead and start doing the work. What defines my work being completed?
Good, good, good. So the basically when we are going to start the scope, so scope is always very crucial. Like if it is sure our scope is not clear, then we are losing our the project, the timelines, our budget, our schedule, everything we are going to lose because our scope is not finalized. The scope is not clear. So that's the reason I have written here. Uh, when a scope management, when we are going to do the scope management, like clear boundary is required for the project, like what we are going to develop. This is the first thing, it will be there for the scope. Then second thing, no extra work without the approval. Like most of the project, when you dive any kind of project, most of the project and most of the time, whatever the scope is there, apart from the scope, so many things will be start coming slowly. So that should not happen. If it is happening this kind of the thing, we are not able to complete on the time. So no extra work without approval. The next thing will be there, like projects say on the timeline, cost and quality. So that's the reason, like project, we are able to finish on the timelines. We are not going to deviate on the cost. We are not going to compromise on the quality. So that's the reason, like a scope is required to fix it. We need to clear it. We need to make some proper boundary. Okay. The next thing, I'll just give you an example. So I'm just making one e-commerce website, and then the home, product listing page, cart page, checkout page are in the scope. Suddenly it will become like, okay, it should be the mobile app also, AI recommendation also, chatbot also, it will be, we can use in the scope. Then this, whatever the extra thing will be going to come, like mobile app, AI recommendation, chatbot, these all are not in the scope. So if it is not in the scope, we should not consider. If we are considering, again, we are going to lose the three things, like time, cost, and quality or budget. So whatever the extra thing, we need to do separately, and we need to plan separately. So once we understand this is my scope, we need to sign off, we need to make the proper plan, and then we can go start execution part. So like you just see here, like when we are going in the scope, we have the plan, we have the collect requirement, then we are defining the scope, then we are creating WBS, then we are validating a scope and controlling a scope. We will see that what the WBS, what the validating scope and controlling scope part. But the first I just want to understand, suppose if I'm going to make any kind of the project, then a scope is always required to fix it in the starting. If we are not fixing, lot more problem will be going to come, and we are not going to complete project on the time with the quality. So that's the reason a scope is required. Any doubt, any question from till now? Question? I'm audible, clear?
No questions, but your audio is cracking up though.
Okay. Next, we are going to do like scope planning. So once we are going to do the scope planning, like scope planning, how we need to manage the scope. This is the main thing will be there inside the planning. How we are going to manage our scope. So first thing, how requirement will be collected. Like we need to understand the how requirement we collecting, or like some cross-functional team member, like marketing team, sales team, who will be going to collect the requirement. We need to understand. Once we understand the requirement collection, then we need to define the scope. Suppose if I'm going to make one car, and the car is not defined, like which kind of the car I'm going to create, then will be the problem. So we need to define the scope, like okay, we are going to create some electric car, or we are going to create, we are going to make some car like Thar, Bolero, some kind of the vision should be there, some kind of the scope should be there inside that the project, that this kind of the car we are going to create. Once we decided that okay, we are just going to create the Thar car or BMW car, then we are going to do the work breakdown structure. So in the work breakdown structure, what we are going to do, we are just dividing each and every part, like how the wheel will be there, how the steering will be there, how the body will be there, how the inside the interior should be there, which kind of the infotainment system should be there, if it is the display will be there, like which kind, how many size the display should be there. All the information we need to make with the work breakdown structure. Once this all the things will be completed, then we need to write like how a scope will be handled, like what are the steps we are going to handle the scope. If it is one by one we are finishing the scope, what are the things will be there inside the pipeline, and how we are going to take this another scope, and how we are going to complete it. So all this information we are just going to write inside the scope planning area. Okay, once we are going to make scope planning, it will be include like a scope definition method. So what are the scope definition method? So clearly describe the project objective, what are the deliverables should be there, what are the boundaries should be there. This is very important for the project. What are the boundary? Beyond boundary I cannot go. If we are going, sometimes we are just giving some extra work, that's considered the gold plating. So when we are going to do inside like fixed bid project, gold plating is not required. But when we are going with the agile way of the project, yes, the gold plating part we can just suggest, and we can charge for money for that also. So boundary is always very important for the like a scope definition method. Then the constants and assumption will be there, like what are the things we can make constant, and what are the things we can go with the assumption, what are the things it can be happen in the features. That all are the things we are going to write inside the scope management plan. Next is the like requirement management approach. How we are just taking the requirement, what are the way is there. So here I have just written clearly how requirement are collected via interview, discussing with our stakeholder, our sponsor, or our client, or workshop we are making. Inside the workshop we are taking the decision. These all are the things we are going to take. What are the approach we have, that we need to write inside the scope planning. then validate whatever the acceptance criteria is there. How, if I develop something, how the customer is accepting that development, what are the criteria they are fulfilling. This all are the things we are going to write inside the scope planning. Next, it's happening like change request process. So previously meeting, we already discussed about like how the change management process will be there, how the CCB approach will be there. So I'm not discussing more here. So, but we need to write like if it is some changes will be coming in the inside the project, how we are going to approach for that changes. What are my process will be there? What are the approval should be there? We are going to write inside the scope planning area. Then a scope validation process will be there. Once the scope defined, when we are going to develop, we are just validating that this scope has been completed properly as per the expectation or not. That all the things we are going to write inside the scope planning. And then the controlling approach will be there, like how we are going to control the our scope. If it is later also coming, or whatever the scope is already decided, how we are going to control. So these all are the things we are doing inside the scope planning area. Till now, any doubt? So the basic my way of the scope planning, like a scope planning define how a scope will be defined, validate and control across the project life cycle. So in the project life cycle, we already know like initialization, planning, execution, monitoring, and controlling, and then closure. So the whole life cycle, how we are going to control this the scope. This all are the things is here. Till now, any doubt for the scope planning? Guys, any doubt? Scope planning part. Is this clear? Scope planning.
Clear.
So next is happening like requirement, collect requirement. So what are the way we need to collect the requirement from customer, from a stakeholder, from client? Anyone want to highlight any point? Like what are the way we are just collecting the requirement? Any
To an
idea,
use
anything?
Workshops we have, questionnaire, open
Good, good,
discussion. Yes, yes.
good, good. Any other point, anyone? Good point, Harsha. Okay, I'll explain it.
surveys,
So when we
interviews.
are going to, yeah, so when we are going to collect the requirement, we need to understand the stakeholder needs, like what are the things they are looking for this project. So first we need to understand the needs. There were gather the document from a stakeholder want, and these are the technique is there, like we need to do the interview one to one, we had the discussion, we need to understand what they are looking. Then we need to make the workshop, like create the workshop, we bring all the stakeholder, we need to discuss like what are the requirements should be there, how this requirement is feasible for the project or not, or is this important requirement is there for the project or not. All these things we need to discuss inside the workshop module. So suppose if I'm going to make one car, I'll just give example. So in this car, like which kind of the light should be there, which kind of the steering should be there, which kind of the interior should be there, like leather seat will be there or normal seat will be there. We're just discussing in the workshop, and the people they'll just give the their input, like okay, this kind of the light should be there, this kind of the infotainment system should be there. So we are just collecting the requirement from there. Next is coming like questionnaire. We are just asking the question and then we are taking the answer from there. Brainstorming session we need to do. Like if somebody has asked that okay, light we are going to use this company and this is the price range and all, then we need to do the brainstorming that this is suitable for that project or not. If it is, we are using what are the benefit, what are the drawback will be there. All these things we are discussing inside the brainstorming session. Sometimes you guys just see that okay, when we are making some website, previously development started, we need to do the prototype and wireframing. So the customer also know about that what my product will be going to happen tomorrow. So we are doing the prototyping and wireframe also. This is also one very the great method to collect the requirement. We just give some wireframe and then the people they'll come back and they'll say, I need here some changes, I need here some changes. And then we are just creating the prototype. And once the prototype we are suggesting with the customer, again, if some changes will be there, we are doing the changes and the final prototype we are creating. Sometimes the people they'll say the final blueprint we are creating. And here, like once you offer one prototype, there are so many changes will be there. So many requirement is coming from the customer. Observation, like some of the similar project is happened in the previous. We are just doing the observation, like the similar project is there. Is this feature also is required in this project? That all the thing we are considering. So these are the technique we are just considering a requirement. What is the motive of collecting requirement? Like uh, requirement gathering is also one of the major part for the scoping, where we gather all the requirement, and if it is all the useful requirement for the project, that's the reason we are doing this session. We are just writing all the requirement inside the requirement document, and we are just making a requirement plan. I just given here example, like need login page with the mobile OTP. So some users suggested that okay, when we are doing the logging, we just need the mobile OTP, and once the people enter the mobile OTP, then only the login will be happen. So this is one requirement we are gathering. Next is need filter by price. So if I'm creating one e-commerce portal, so I'm just making filter for the pricing, like low to high or high to low. Need invoice download. So I just creating one requirement that okay, in this month how much sale I did. So I just need to download the invoice. So these all are the requirement we are gathering with. These are the various methods. So in some time, like when we are just doing the exam for the PMP also, they'll be asked some of the question like how you are going to gather the requirement, and they'll be give some option like interview method or workshop method. Like this, they'll be give some option we need to choose. So these are the option to collect the requirement. Is this clear for that collecting requirement?
Yes.
Guys?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is
Okay.
clear.
So next is like once we gather the requirement, we are just going to document the requirement in somewhere. So when we are going to document the requirement, that is called a requirement traceability matrix. And inside the requirement traceability matrix, matrix should be something like that. So you can just see here, this is the requirement traceability matrix. So what will be happen? Some number will be written, sometimes like people they'll be write some number, then the requirement, whatever the OTP with the login, then what is the business goal will be there, and then they will be write the WBS, like I'll explain in this session only what is the WBS. And when we are going to do the WBS, what are the process will be there, and what the meaning of WBS means, work breakdown structure. So whatever the big work, epic work, we are just making with the features, and the feature works we are just slicing, and we are making work breakdown structure where the a small work will be there, like task will be there, or a story point, a story will be there. So that way we are just dividing the bigger work to a smaller work. That's considered the work breakdown structure. WBS. Then we are just writing the test cases, like what are the test cases will be there, how we are going to test it, the particular function, all the details we have written, and here we have written the status for that. So once we gather the requirement, we are just writing all the requirement inside the requirement traceability matrix RTM, and inside the RTM, like track why this RTM is required. So track the requirement into it. So all the requirements we are just tracking inside the RTM. RTM table will be like this way, like business objective, what will be there, scope and WS, what will be there, is this requirement in the design, development, testing, or delivery phase, all the details we are writing inside the RTM. So RTM is also very important when we are just going to create the scope. Ensure no requirement is missed. That's the reason we are just creating the RTM, and ensure unnecessary like features to be built. We are just ensuring that these are my traceability matrix, requirement traceability matrix. We are just going to develop one by one, so it will be not happen any extra thing, any extra changes or any gold plating part of there. So that's the reason RTM we are just writing. Helps during audit and change request. This RTM is always important when we are doing the audit, or if any change request will be going to come, it will be always helpful for that. RTM ensure every requirement is delivered and validated. That's the reason we use RTM. Any doubt for requirement traceability matrix?
So RTM is primarily, or the requirement when we talk about it is more at the epic level, basically.
Yes, when we are going to do the like scope like planning. So
Mhm.
when we are going to do the planning and we have now the all the requirement, we know that. So once we know that all the requirement, we are just writing the ITM requirement traceability matrix. We are writing. It's like the document will be there like Excel, like the Excel. So we are writing all the requirement over there, and that requirement it will be just show that why this is required. It's not epic level, even we are just writing in the feature level also. And when we are writing the feature level, sometimes the people they'll be write the work breakdown structure level also, like when we are just going to create one login page. So login is one of the like user story part. So that part also, if it is required, we are writing. But this level only, not going beyond that, like very minute level we are not going, but till we are just adding all three levels, like epic level, feature level, and user story or task level. Is this answer?
Yes,
Is this answer your question?
yes, it does.
Okay. So
I think Mira
next
has a
is
question.
happening how.
I think Mira has a question. There is a hand raised.
Yeah, Jira is the best. Yes, Jira is the best. Jira is the
No,
best.
I'm saying
So Jira is
Mira has raised a hand, so maybe Mira has a question.
okay. Mira, go
Yes,
ahead.
yes. My question is about at what level do we consider the technology stack? Is this at the requirement gathering stage where we consider the technology stack that will be useful, the functional to build the
Okay.
functionalities?
Okay, got it. So, like the two, when we're going with the like system design level. So, in the system design level, we are just doing the two things. One is high level and low level for the like requirement traceability. And once the high level and low level we are created, then we are going with the component label. And here we are deciding like which kind of the technology we are going to do this in this project. Definitely in the planning phase only, we are deciding which kind of the technology should be there for this project. Uh, once we decide, like even the customer side also, like if it is some architect and everyone architect or backend team will be there, they'll be just suggest that these are the technology you have to use, or if you want to add some more you can add, and we can discuss. So these all are the things. Sometime it will be happen with the initialization phase also, like when we are initializing the project, where the project charter, everything high level has written. In the project charter area, everything high level written. Like suppose if I'm going to create one e-commerce portal. So in this e-commerce portal, they'll be just going to write high level, like, okay, backend part you are going to use for the Java, and front end part you are going to use like React, Angular, or HTML, CSS. And backend part you are going to use Java, Spring, Hibernate, Struts, or SQL or MySQL, whatever the database server will be there. They have written high level. Now, when we are going to the planning phase, like in this planning phase, we are discussed every minute level, like, okay, when we are going to do some CSS, what kind of the CSS? Either we can use Lace or Sass, or we can use Tailwind. Similarly, when we are going to do the backend part, like what the Java version, Java, what we are going to use, either we are going to use microservices or some other architecture. All these things we are deciding inside the planning phase. And what are the database we are going to use? Based on the project requirement, we are going to use the database. Sometime what will be happen, like two, three kind of the database they'll be used. Like if it is very secure, then the relational database they are going to use. If it is some uh, suppose we are just going to use some blogging kind of the thing or social media kind of the thing, then they'll be use non-relational database for that. So we decide all the technology part inside the planning, and then we can go with the, we are going to use in the execution part. So every technology, everything, sometimes they'll be do inside the system design. The will come as starting. The high level is written inside the project charter. Now the second thing, when we are coming with the planning phase, the high level, whatever the technology has written, we are going with the deep level, and we understand what the technology is required and what the reason behind it. We noted down all the technology with the sitting all the developer and our team. Even the sometime it will be the client side, the you people is there, we will involve him also, and then we are deciding by which kind of the technology and why we are using. Like if I'm saying that I'm going to use the microservices, why I'm going to use the microservices, what is the reason behind it, what kind of the database we are going to use, that we are also discussing. Like, is this relation and not relation, which kind of database is required, all these things we are discussing inside the planning phase. Is this clear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So next, we are just doing defining the scope. Like we already seen that why we are defining the scope, because if the scope is defined, if the boundary is defined, we are able to achieve on the time. If it is not defined, we always deviate what we are going to achieve. So that's the reason we are defining the scope. So convert requirement into the detailed scope statement. Whatever the requirement is there, we are just making the detailed scoping part, where small part we are also discussing, we are defining, we are just writing that what we are going to achieve in that. And here how here you create the project scope statement. So what are the deliverable will be there? Like inside the deliverable, what we are going to deliver, this we are going to write inside the defining scope. In a scope work, like what are the things inside the scope is written is there, that also we are writing. Out of the scope work also we are writing, like what is, if I'm it will be go beyond the scope, that part also we are writing. What the assumption will be there, what constraints will be there, what acceptance criteria will be there. So all are the things we are writing inside the defining scope. Example, like here the deliverable will be there, like product listing page is one of the deliverable, checkout page, payment page. These are my deliverable. These are my defined scope is there. Out of the scope is some of the part we are just writing inside the defining scope, like mobile app development. This is the out of scope, but we are just writing inside that. These are the scope should be there. Chatbot is one of the out of the scope. We are just writing. Sometime when we got the time and we suggest the customer, if he like, he'll be include the scope. Otherwise, if he don't like, he'll be not include the scope. So that's the reason we are just writing the scope, like whatever the deliverable and what is the out of scope. That part also we are writing inside the scope. So defining a scope transform the requirement into the clear scope statement with the boundary. Boundary is always important for the scope. Next is happening work breakdown structure. Very important part. Like most of the interview or most of the question, even the PMI also will be going to ask what is the WBS, what the breakdown structure will be do. Sometimes they'll ask like if 1.1 and then I'm writing some breakdown structures. You just see here 1.1 is UI design. So sometimes they'll be asked 1.1.0 like in the UI design, what will be like how we are just going to write like in 1.1.0 can I write for like prototype because it's related for all the designing. So 1.1 will be start with the all the designing work. Here the logging 1.2. This is the work breakdown structure. The point they'll be just keep like this and they'll be right. So we'll see what is the work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure means breaking big project work into the smaller deliverable task. This is a very important part, like deliverable task when we are going to make inside the WBS means we are just making a smaller part which is give some value for the project, and that smaller part, if I go with the agile way of the development, we can say this is the story point, or we can say this is the inside the story point some task will be there. Why the WBS we are doing? What the reason behind it? Better planning. If I'm doing the WBS, we are just going to do the better planning, better estimation, clear responsibility, better process tracking. Because if I'm doing smaller part for the any features or any epic, we need to know that okay, this requirement is clear till here. We are able to give the better estimation, like how many days will be going to complete for that. We have the clear responsibility, like who will be going to do what, and better process tracking, like we are able to track it easily. So that's the reason we do the WBS. In the website development, these are the things, these are the WBS, like 1.1 designing, 1.2 login, 1.3 product catalog, 1.4 catalog, a cart, 1.5 checkout, and 1.5 payment gateway. If it is some uh, order confirmation, 1.10, or some people they'll write 1.1 like this. They have some format in the company. So is there any doubt for the WBS work breakdown structure, or any question is there?
Question.
What will be happen? Now I'm asking the question. What will be happen if I'm not going to create the WBS? What will be the problem for the project?
Given that the WBS, is the most minute part of the work that needs to be done, right?
And if I'm making most minute part, then easy to give the timelines properly, easy to give the
So your planning
proper.
is more robust.
Correct.
You have a robust plan in terms of the schedule, cost, and the people required to deliver that.
Correct. So that's
I'm not able to hear
high
you.
like
Is
high
anyone able to
frequency kind
hear
of the
Mukesh?
estimation.
Hello?
So WBS is always required. Yeah, I'm audible.
We
You
can
were
now I
cutting
can
out
hear.
sometime. We can hear you
You are
now.
now I can hear you, but we could not hear
Okay.
you, I guess.
So what will be happen like WBS we create because we need to give the proper tracking process, proper resource alignment for the, if I'm creating the WBS, we are able to give the proper resource alignment. We are able to track it easily. Uh, and if it is the smaller part, we can estimate the better way. So that's the reason we do the WBS for any project. Next is happening like a scope baseline. Last time we already discussed the scope baseline. Any idea about the scope baseline? Any idea? I'm audible or it'll be breaking sometime.
You're audible now.
Okay. So the next point is like a scope baseline. So what are the things will be there inside the scope baseline? So a scope baseline is nothing but like whatever the scope is approved, it comes under the scope baseline. And when we are going to do the like project, here the project scope statement will be there. This is the upper part. Then we are just doing the work breakdown structure. We are just making the smaller part for the project, and we are just going to write WBS dictionary where each WBS has been written. So inside the WBS, every detail has been written that comes under the WBS dictionary. This is make for the making the scope baseline, and we are going to compare with the what are the actual and what are the plan for from there. So that's the reason the scope baseline we create. Any doubt till now for the scope baseline? Next, we are going the scope validation. Once we see that, okay, defining a scope, requirement gathering, defining a scope, once the scope has been defined, the RTM requirement traceability matrix we do. Once the requirement traceability matrix we done, then we are just doing like requirement scope baseline, and then last we are doing like scope validation. So what will be happen the scope validation, whatever the scope we decided, whatever the scope we plan, now we are validating that as per the our plan the scope is delivered or not. So a scope validation, it will be happen inside the scope review, sprint review or demo area. When we are demoing the customer, we are just validating our scope. uh, Deliverable acceptance meeting, we are just validating a scope in here, and we just taking like acceptance deliverable form formally with the stakeholder, like client sign off, UI acceptance, payment method, whatever the acceptance criteria we are just fulfilling inside the scope validation. And validation equal to the customer acceptance, uh, quality control, it will be happen inside the internal checking. So this is the small difference will be there, like validation and quality control. So quality control will be happen inside the team only, and validation will be happen with the customer. We are just taking the sign off that whatever we deliver is as per your expectation or not. Inside sometime we are checking with the UI acceptance, like coding, whatever the coding we did that acceptance, whatever we deliver that make the value for the customer or not, that all are the things we are just validating inside the scope validation. Is this clear?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Next is happening a scope control. This is the last part of the like scope. So we make the boundary for the scope and then we are controlling the scope. So a scope control in the sense control the changes in the scope. Whatever the scope we decided, it should not change inside the scope. That comes under the scope controlling. If it is more changes will be there in the scope, there is no scope control. Then it comes under the scope creep or CCB, change management plan area. So the scope control inside, like we are just controlling the scope. Uh, Monitor scope status, like whatever the scope is there, we are just monitoring time to time and we are it should not deviate whatever we plan. Manage scope changes. If it is some scope changes will be there, how we are going to manage? We have when we are just planning, we have written inside like if it is some scope changes will be there, what my procedure should be there. Like we can go with the CCB, or if it is small changes, we can do it. All the procedure we have written. Prevent the scope creep. Scope creep is very dangerous part for the project. If it is happening, we are not able to complete the project on the time. So prevent, stop the scope creep. If it is the scope is very clear, then the scope creep will be not happening. But if it is the scope is not clear, scope creep will be happen. So make sure when we are defining the scope, when we are understanding the scope, we need to discuss each and every point and then we can decide the scope. Okay, if it is the scope control area, like some tools will be there when the CCB will be there, change control board will be there when the any change request has been happened. uh, if it is some change request is happened, then change request form will be there. They'll be just write the form and they'll be just give us once the change law changes came, we are just writing in the change log, and then we are doing the impact analysis, like how much going to impact for this project, how much time will be going to take, how much budget will be going to take, and then we are just going to update in the ITM. We seen in the ITM like requirement traceability metric. We just this we are writing because here in the ITM every detail for the requirement. So if it is any requirement change, we are updating inside the RTM also. Scope creep ensure the changes are viewed, approved, and baseline properly. So if any change request is happen, these all are the things we are ensuring. Like changes are reviewed, approved, and baseline updated properly. So this is the in this way we are just controlling the scope. Next is happening the scope creep. We all know the scope creep. What is the scope creep? Any idea about that? Mira, go ahead. You are asking something?
Yes, sorry, I was going to ask a question. Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused if change in requirements is the same as a scope creep. That's what I wanted to ask.
Okay. So, like when we are, if any change will be happening, it comes under the scope creep, definitely. And the second thing, like mm, if any small changes, like some text will be changing, some color will be changing, it will be not going to impact much. Then we are doing for the free. But if it is something is a bigger part, bigger changes will be there, we just consider the change request CR, that is calls in comes under the project like CR, change request. And that change request, once it will become, we are updating the change log, and then we are just doing the impact analysis. Suppose we are going to create one car, and later the people they'll come and they'll say that okay, my wheel should be like 20 meter height, and earlier we decided the 16-meter height. So now we have a change request. We need to do the impact analysis for the car, like how it will be going to impact for the car, because now we are going to use 20 meters height of the wheels. So we do the impact analysis, and once we do the impact analysis, we note down the all pros and cons, and then we are going to approach with the CCB. And as a project manager, I'm just giving all the details that this will be going to happen. These are the timeline will be going to impacted, and these are the budget will be going to increase. All these things we are going to give that CCB, and then the CC will be going to decide that we need to uh, this whatever the change request we need to do or we need to not do. So scope creep is nothing but the changes only. Whatever the change will become after approve the scope, if any change will become or change will be bigger, then it comes under the scope creep or change request. Is it clear?
Yes, it's clear. So when the change is happening, do we so do they call like a meeting? Do they call like a meeting for all the stakeholders involved, or it happens just within the team?
Okay. So any stakeholder like who has a more power and more interest, if he'll be going to raise the request, we need to consider about that. If somebody has low power, low interest, if he is raising some change request, we need to discuss and we need to avoid this kind of the change request. We need to discuss like, is this really required to do or not? If it is like who has more power, more interest, he has rises. Like sponsor has rises, client has rises. Now we need to do because we don't have option. So we need to do, and if this kind of the change request has been raised, we need to do the proper impact analysis. We need to inform him that these are the things will be going to happen, and these are the things will be going. These are the timelines will be going to take. So is come by the customer only, and mostly it will be the change request part will be happen inside the traditional of the project where the project uh, scope is fixed. But when we are coming with the like agile way of the working where the product owner is already there, he is the voice of the client. So if any change request is happen, he'll just managing with the client. And because this is the TNM project, when we are coming with the agile, so it will be not required to go with the CCB and take the approval and then we can start, because this is the agile way of the working. So we always welcome for the any kind of the changes for the client, and we are just accepting. But this change request part is already handled by the product owner with the client. So this is the scope area. Mira, you got your answer, or I need to define some more time?
No, I understand that. I just want to get clarity. Is this CCB the same as CAP
CCB is same as cab.
meeting?
Mira, CCB is same as cab.
Yes, that's my question.
Your question?
Yes.
CCB is same as cab.
The change
That,
advisory
that's the
board,
question.
is it the
That
same?
that's the same question. Mukesh, can you hear us?
So yeah, I'm able to hear you. So you are saying like CCB and cab both are same, right?
Yes, my question is CCB the same as as CAP? So the change advisory board, is that the same?
I don't think so, because CCB is like change control board will be there. Every project, every company has a CCB, and
Okay.
cab, I'm not sure. I'll just see that.
CAB is more of a, it not necessarily be part of the project as such, right?
Okay,
CCB is the terminology which is more for
change control
project
board.
management, project management changes. CAB is
Correct, correct.
not for project management specific change, but then there also they approve the change, they analyze the change, they approve or decline whatever they do.
Okay. Okay,
They
thank
review
you.
the change
Yes.
request because see, it could be in a BAU process also that you need to run a change. You have an IT infrastructure server where you're running a patch update. So that patch update is a change. Then the project evolve out. So out of that change, CAB, right? That we have to run a project. So what is that? The project comes after that. right? That
Okay.
can happen that way, but then it's very similar. It's a very thin line of difference, I think.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, so here Mira is already saying like a cab is also like group of other people who will be review the change request, access the risk and impact, approve and reject. So it look like the similar only. You got it, Mira?
Yes, I do appreciate.
Okay. So next, when we are going with the scope creep, so we already seen here like a scope creep is unapproved, a scope increase, it will be happen. So then it comes under the scope creep. Like I'll give an here example, client suddenly say add AI recommendation features without change request the timeline update. Like whatever the timeline inside, you can just add one more item that is called AI recommendation feature. So it comes under the scope creep. And why it's dangerous, like scope creep is always problem. It'll be impact your schedule, delay, costing will be going to increase, team burnout will be going to happen, and quality issue also it will be going to happen because suddenly it's the requirement has been came and they want to finish in the same timelines. So
And I
that's the
think that's
dangerous
where
for
the
the scope creep.
I think that's where the role of project manager becomes very handy, to ensure the scope creep doesn't happen, because he's responsible for the delivery of the project, and he should ensure that that messaging is clearly delivered, and the approach is agreed to go through a approved change process. So these kind of things happens normally in a project where possibly the client, somebody directly trying to reach out to the development team or to the execution team in a non-software development area to try and get some tweaks to the existing scope
Correct.
of work, right? uh, so the scope creep is where we do not have a
Correct.
formal change and they directly reach out. But in an agile terminology, though,
Yeah.
in agile world, we talk about, we always welcome change, but there also the change to the everything is managed to the product backlog rather than through the product project planning. That is only to the sprint planning that they do, right? So with that thought process, if I were to just think about it and say something that, though they welcome the change, any change is required to be first agreed and updated on the product backlog, which basically means that the product owner has to take the ownership of discussing with the client and ensure that, because the project manager doesn't do that. There is the project manager is like ensuring only that scrum or the agile methodology is followed, but then the product owner who's responsible for the product backlog is maintaining that update as a feature in the product backlog.
Correct. Correct.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that.
And
That's always
some of
a recurring.
the part like when the waterfall method, here the main role will be here the product owner role will be lesser. Here the business administration will be there, and here the project manager role will be there, and make sure he'll be just avoiding this kind of the challenges, because if it is he's not avoiding, the scope creep is a silent killer of the project. It'll be just kill the project, uh, and then we are not able to deliver on the time. And how we need to stop, how we need to prevent, these are the reason, these are the way we need to do, like clear scope baseline we need to define, RTM tracking we can make, because the client should not directly approach with the developer and say something. So that's the reason here the RTM is there, a requirement traceability matrix. The people they can take the requirement from there only, so it will be not directly approaching with the developer. Proper change board process will be there. Like if any change will be coming, we need to ask the timelines, budget, and resources, and proper way of the development. And stakeholder communication is always important, that we are just discussing with the stakeholder, updating him that what we are going to do, how we are going to do, all these things, information we are giving. So we are going to stop the scope creep. So these are the things is completely inside the scope. Hope you guys are enjoys today for the scope. You understand so many things today.
Yes,
We
from my
have
side.
one.
Thank you so much.
We have 1 minute. If you have any question, you can ask. Otherwise, it will be closed in 1 minute.
Questions. Thank you.
Okay. So tomorrow we are just going to see some other topic. Like today we seen the scope. Tomorrow maybe schedule inside the like schedule is there. Tomorrow we can see the schedule. We can see what is the fast tracking, fast crashing, how we are going to make the milestone, what is the CPM, critical path, what will be there, what is the dependency type, and all these things we'll see. What are the like network diagram, all these things will be see inside the scheduling part. So for today is done. Thanks a lot for joining, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.